as mindfulness becomes ever more popular, it can be really normal for people to recommend it to you. They may have benefited from it themselves, and it may be that you're suffering or struggling in some way, and with the best of intentions, they may think, oh, this could be helpful for you, and sort of suggesting that this is something you might like to try. And sometimes great, you might check it out and think, yeah, that sounds great, I'm up for that. But also really normal to be not so sure about it. And even to be quite clear, no, this is not the right thing for me. And you might be absolutely right about that. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to well-being. But on the other hand, sometimes some of the ways that mindfulness is described and approached is, a little bit superficial, has a sort of tinge of magical thinking about it. And so I think it might be helpful to take a more realistic approach to what mindfulness really is. And just to provide a bit of information here is what I'd like to do, and so that you can make an informed choice if you're wondering about mindfulness but are not quite sure. And so, well, first of all, if you are feeling dismissive or kind of negative about it, that's completely understandable. As I say, oftentimes the way it's presented is a little bit simplistic. It doesn't really honor the complexity of our lives, the complexity of who we are, what we are, the profound struggles that we can get caught in. And sometimes you get the impression that, just be present. I mean, what does that even mean, be present? But just be present. The word just is often in there a lot. Just be present and everything will be fine. And people are sort of pointing directly at some magical land of well-being that might feel like it's got nothing to do with you. And so there can be a real feeling of disconnect here. And I think that's completely understandable. I think actually, if you want to have a sense of whether mindfulness is for you, it's actually probably helpful not to talk about mindfulness at all. If we back up and really reflect, well, what's this really all about? There are a couple of questions you could ask yourself, which I think can helpfully just get right to the heart of this. And the first one is, do you have the sense that the way your mind is working is relevant for the struggles and suffering you're experiencing? Because if you have the sense, no, what's going on inside me is not relevant for the suffering, the struggling I'm experiencing, then mindfulness is definitely not for you, because mindfulness is really interested in how is the mind working? Not from a theoretical perspective, but actually getting to see it, getting more familiar with our patterns of thinking, feeling what's going on in our bodies, and doing that in a way where we don't get overwhelmed, crucially, and also where we have a sense we start to develop a bit more agency, a bit more a feeling that we have a bit of wiggle room with all of what's going on inside us, our thoughts and feelings and so on. So mindfulness is really interested with what's going on inside us. And if you're clear that's not relevant for you, for the concerns that you have, that's not a relevant piece of the puzzle, then I would say don't get involved with mindfulness, because that's definitely what it's about. So that's the first question. Are the inner workings of your mind and your heart, we could say, your kind of inner life, is that relevant for you? And the second question is, do you want to get involved in that? You might have a sense, yeah, it's relevant for me, but I just don't want to go anywhere near it, which is understandable. This can be daunting, really. We might be kind of afraid of that. And I mean, it's worth saying, the approach of mindfulness is very patient. We take our time. It's very gentle. But nonetheless, if you just have an instinctive sense, I don't want to go anywhere near the inner workings of my mind, then again, mindfulness may not be for you. You may be more helpful at this time anyway to focus more outwardly, to get involved in other things like, exercise or other forms of self-care that are not really about looking inwardly. So that might be the end of the story for you. Nope, I don't want to look inside. It's not relevant for me. No problem. What else is going to be helpful, I would say. But if you do have a sense, broadly speaking, I am interested in what's going on inside me and it is relevant for me, then, essentially that's what mindfulness is about. Awareness, becoming more aware of what's going on inside us, but crucially with qualities like patience and care and curiosity. And as you hear words like that, it's really normal for those themselves, those little words, to set off alarm bells. You might hear a word like acceptance is another word that is associated with mindfulness. Being aware of what's happening and accepting it. But that might bring a question, wait, does that mean just you let go of all agency? You accept everything in the world that's injustice and so forth? And short answer is no, that's not what it means. But it's understandable when you hear words like that to have real questions about those. And I would say good. Those little alarm bells are usually very wise. But when you look into them, my sense is anyway with mindfulness, when you look into all these different words that are associated, non-judgment is another one, actually we can be quite sophisticated about our understanding of all these words so that they really are helpful and they're not about giving up our agency or letting go of all preferences or whatever. So, there's a few kind of reflections around this whole question of, is mindfulness for me? Next step, if you have a sense, it might be, is to try it out in a way that feels safe and contained and so on. And that's, we tend to do that, the Mindfulness Project, with courses, but that's quite a commitment as well. It's worth acknowledging. So there might be another way where you can get some really good guidance that feels contained. You have a sense of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And right from the get-go, it feels okay. It's normal for there to be uncomfortable edges with all of this, but broadly speaking, it should feel okay doing it. And there are ways of doing this that really do feel okay. If this feels overwhelmingly like a negative, traumatic experience, then that doesn't mean mindfulness isn't for you, but the way you're trying it is probably not quite right at the moment. So again, some more guidance can be helpful there. So I would say trust your instincts. But I hope that, if you do have a sense that this is something you're interested in, the inner workings of you, and getting involved in that in a way that's constructive and realistic, then next steps will be to look around and see what might be helpful for you. And if it's not the right thing for you, then in a way that's good. You know that. If there are people are still recommending this to you, I hope you can find a way of sort of deflecting them with without too much friction, and to be able to find what is helpful for you. Because there's so many different ways of taking care of ourselves, and really that's what we need. That's what the world needs. The world needs well-adjusted, well-regulated human beings. Because when everything goes a bit pear-shaped, it's typically, I think, because people are just freaking out. Don't feel safe, don't feel seen, we don't feel cared for. And understandably, we lash out in all kinds of ways that are destructive, which is, of course, understandable, but also deeply unfortunate. So if we can find ways to take care of ourselves, then good for us and good for the world. Okay, if you have any questions about any of this stuff, be in touch. Reach out to us at the Mindfulness Project. Happy to offer more information, to be in contact if that would be helpful. Take care.